What if I told you that Carl Jung discovered a psychological truth so powerful that it can instantly expose any narcissist? And what if I told you that this truth can be weaponized into a single question that will shatter their carefully constructed facade in seconds? Stay with me, because by the end of this, you'll possess the psychological key that Jung himself would have used to dismantle their illusion. But first, let me ask you something. Have you ever wondered why some people can drain your energy with just a conversation? Why certain individuals make you question your own reality? Carl Jung said that everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. But what Jung didn't say was how to protect yourself from those who weaponize this very principle against you. According to Carl Jung, the human psyche operates through what he called the persona, the mask we wear to navigate social interactions. But Jung discovered something darker. Some individuals don't just wear a persona, they become it entirely. These are the people we now recognize as narcissists, though Jung would have called them individuals who have lost complete connection to their authentic self. And here's where it gets disturbing. Jung believed that when someone loses touch with their true self, they become psychologically parasitic. They literally feed off the energy and validation of others to maintain their false identity. But Jung also discovered their greatest weakness, and I'm about to show you exactly how to exploit it. Carl Jung said, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. For narcissists, this terror runs so deep that they construct elaborate psychological fortresses to avoid this confrontation. They become masters of what Jung called projection, constantly deflecting their inner emptiness onto others. You've encountered them before. The colleague who takes credit for your work while ensuring you remain invisible. The partner who twists every conversation to center themselves. The friend who makes your achievements about their superiority. Carl Jung discovered that these individuals operate from what he termed the shadow, but unlike healthy individuals who acknowledge their shadow, narcissists deny its existence entirely. But here's what Jung realized that most people miss: their greatest strength is also their fatal flaw. And once you understand this Jungian principle, you'll never be manipulated again. According to Carl Jung, healthy individuals develop what he called individuation, the process of integrating all aspects of themselves, including their flaws. But narcissists have arrested this development. They remain psychologically frozen, unable to face their authentic self because it would mean confronting the very emptiness they've spent their lives avoiding. Carl Jung said, your vision becomes clear when you look into your heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens. But narcissists can never look inside because what they would find there terrifies them beyond measure: nothing. No authentic self, no genuine identity, only a hollow space that requires constant external validation to feel real. And this is where Jung's most powerful insight comes in, the insight that will give you the weapon you need to expose them completely. Jung discovered that narcissists exist in what he called a state of psychological inflation. They have become identified with their persona so completely that they believe they are the mask. They've lost all connection to their authentic self, and this creates a terrifying dependency. They literally cannot exist without an audience. According to Carl Jung, this creates what he termed shadow projection on a massive scale. Everything they cannot accept about themselves, their emptiness, their fear, their inadequacy, gets projected onto others. This is why they make you question your reality. This is why they twist every situation. This is why they can never accept responsibility. But Jung also discovered something remarkable: there's a way to collapse this entire psychological structure with surgical precision. And it doesn't require confrontation, anger, or even evidence. It requires understanding one simple truth about how their mind works. Carl Jung said that the privilege of a lifetime is being who you are. But narcissists have never experienced this privilege because they've never discovered who they actually are beneath the mask. Their entire identity is constructed around external validation, admiration, and control over others' perceptions. This is why traditional confrontation fails. When you attack their behavior, you're attacking the mask, not the person. And Jung discovered that the mask is designed to deflect, distort, and redirect. It's a psychological defense system that has been perfected over years of avoiding authentic self-reflection. But what happens when you bypass the mask entirely? What happens when you speak directly to the terrified authentic self hiding beneath? This is where Jung's insight becomes a weapon. According to Carl Jung, the narcissist's greatest fear is not being exposed as flawed, it's being exposed as nothing. Their terror is not that people will see their mistakes, but that people will see through their illusion entirely and realize there's nothing substantial underneath. Jung believed that this fear drives every narcissistic behavior. The grandiosity, the manipulation, the need for control, all of it stems from one desperate attempt to avoid confronting their own inner void. They've become what Jung called possessed by the persona, completely identified with their false self because their true self feels non-existent. And this is where Jung's most powerful psychological principle comes into play, the principle that will give you complete power over any narcissist you encounter. Carl Jung discovered that you cannot heal what you refuse to acknowledge. But narcissists have built their entire existence around refusing to acknowledge their core wound. They've become psychological vampires, feeding off others' energy to avoid facing their own emptiness. But Jung also realized something profound: their greatest strength is their greatest weakness. Their need for external validation, which gives them power over others, also makes them completely vulnerable to a specific type of question. Because Jung understood that if you can force someone to confront the very thing they've spent their entire life avoiding, their entire psychological structure will collapse. And there's one question that does exactly that. According to Carl Jung, the narcissist's entire identity depends on what he called the participation mystique. They exist only through their connection to others' admiration and validation. Take away that connection, and they're forced to confront something they cannot psychologically handle, themselves. Jung said, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. For narcissists, even imagining a world without external validation is equivalent to psychological death. They literally cannot conceive of existing without an audience because they've never developed an authentic self that could exist independently. And this is the exact psychological pressure point that Jung would have exploited. This is the question that strikes at the very foundation of their false reality. Carl Jung discovered that narcissists live in what he called psychological inflation. They've become identified with an idealized image of themselves that requires constant external confirmation. Without this confirmation, the inflation collapses, and they're forced to confront the deflated reality beneath. So you look them in the eye, calm and unwavering, and you ask, what would you do if you could never impress anyone again? Watch what happens next. Jung would have been fascinated by this moment, the moment when their entire psychological defense system encounters a question it cannot deflect. According to Carl Jung, this question strikes at what he called the core complex, the psychological wound around which their entire personality has been constructed. They've spent their entire lives avoiding this exact scenario, and now you've forced them to confront it directly. You'll see the hesitation, the confusion, the almost imperceptible shift in their expression. Jung would have recognized this as the moment when the persona begins to crack, when the false self confronts its own impossibility. They might laugh, deflect, or even go silent. But Jung understood that inside, something is unraveling. For the first time, they're forced to imagine existing without their primary source of psychological fuel, other people's admiration. And this is where Jung's understanding of the shadow becomes crucial, because what they're confronting in this moment is everything they've spent their lives denying. Carl Jung said that, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. But narcissists have built their entire existence around avoiding this consciousness. They've pushed their darkness so far into the shadow that they've lost touch with their authentic self entirely. When you ask this question, you're not just challenging their behavior, you're challenging their entire reason for existing. Because according to Jung, they've never learned to exist for themselves. Their entire identity is parasitic, dependent on others' energy and validation. This is why Jung would have seen this question as the ultimate psychological intervention. It forces them to confront their deepest terror while giving them no way to escape through their usual manipulation tactics. Carl Jung discovered that narcissists cannot engage with authenticity because they've lost touch with what authenticity even means. Their entire world is built on image management, perception control, and reality distortion. But this question cuts through all of that and speaks directly to the void they've been avoiding. According to Jung, once you understand their psychological structure, the final step is what he called individuation, not theirs, but yours. You must separate yourself from their psychological games and reclaim your own authentic power. And this is where Jung's wisdom becomes your protection, because understanding them is not about fixing them, it's about freeing yourself from their influence. Carl Jung said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. But with narcissists, Jung would have added a crucial caveat: sometimes understanding others teaches us when to walk away. Jung discovered that you cannot heal someone who refuses to acknowledge their wound. You cannot love someone back to authenticity. You cannot force someone to confront their shadow. But you can recognize the pattern, understand the psychology, and choose to no longer participate in their psychological drama. Because Jung understood something profound about human nature, your peace of mind is not dependent on others' psychological health. Your authenticity is not threatened by others' false personas. Your power is not diminished by their manipulation attempts. According to Carl Jung, the ultimate individuation is learning to exist independently of others' psychological projections. With narcissists, this means recognizing that their behavior is not about you, it's about their desperate attempt to avoid confronting their own inner emptiness. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is being who you are." But narcissists have never experienced this privilege, and they will spend their entire lives trying to prevent you from experiencing it too. So the next time you encounter a narcissist, remember Jung's ultimate insight: you hold the power. You have the question that can expose their illusion. But more importantly, you have the psychological understanding to protect yourself from their manipulation. Because as Carl Jung discovered, their greatest fear is not being criticized, it's being seen. And once you truly see them for what they are, they can never again have power over you. That, my friends, is how you use Jung's psychology to expose a narcissist and reclaim your authentic power. Stay strong, stay wise, and remember, their greatest terror is your greatest freedom. Thank you so much for staying with me through this exploration. If you found value in today's discussion, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share this video with someone who might benefit from it.